light in here.
I know you're tired. I know you're hurting. And I wish I could say something that was classy and inspirational. But that just wouldn't be our style. Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever. Right on. Shotgun. DC right. Flip 90. Dig. On the center. Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Bills Guys. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. And for those of you who haven't noticed yet, our screen looks a little bit different today. There's not two faces, there's three faces, because we have a special guest today, former UB Bowl and Buffalo Bills wide receiver, I should say UB Bowls legend, Naaman Roosevelt, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, Naaman, but if I at some point during this conversation pass out, it is because I am just your biggest fan. Like, I might be one day away from being 30 years old, but I'm going to let myself fanboy out today because
show them the nameplate. Show them the nameplate.
I'll get to that in a second, but it was my first year at the University of Buffalo, because I'm a University of Buffalo grad, was your junior year in 2008. Yeah. And we're going to get into the Temple Hail Mary, and we're going to get into the MAC championship game, because I was on the field after that Hail Mary, and I was in the stands for that game, and it was some of the best memories of my life. So I want to thank you for that. And I've even got
definitely thank you.
Your old nameplate from the
yeah.
Buffalo Bills locker room. I got this as a gift, but
he's not a stalker, I promise.
I didn't sneak in and steal it. I got it legitimately.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
My first question to you is: you are local. You're a St. Joe's guy, as some people are mentioning in the comment section. You went to UB. You played for the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. Are you at heart a Bills fan? Do you still follow the team?
Oh, definitely. I mean, being back home is always, the conversation is always, the Bills, what they looking like, how they doing. And it's also cool to see Duke Williams that played in the CFL. He did his thing out there, and to be out there and now seeing with the Bills. I've been watching the color things on YouTube. You've been having crazy catches, so I'm always keeping up with the Bills. Even what's so crazy, when I was in Saskatchewan, it was always the Bills. They showed the Bills games every Sunday, which is crazy. So there's a lot of Bills fans out there. So every time they know I'm from Buffalo, they hear from Buffalo. Bills, Bills pop up every time.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Like Bills Mafia, it really does run deep. One of the main founders of Buffalo Fanatics, Rico, he has the Rico Report every Friday and Sunday nights. He's from Canada. Like, he's from Ottawa, I believe. So, the Canadians are always repping the Bills Mafia. So let's start with your UB career. Let's start with your UB career, because like I said, I need to hear the story. I need to hear the story from your side, because about 30 seconds after that catch against Temple, I was running onto the field right there with you guys, and I was there in 2008, the MAC title game. What was it like being a part of the last football team to win a championship in the city of Buffalo? I think we might have lost.
Okay, we're back.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, all right. You saw the Hail Mary, yeah. So, it was crazy. Always in Temple games is always tough games. Every time we played Temple, they got some of the best players ever. I mean, it's a bunch of players that come from Temple that play professional. So it was always a battle going against those guys. So, I think that last play, we all tired. We tired. I'm telling you, it's really like, hey, let's just get right down to the end zone. So I'm gonna throw it up for you. So we all, everybody, okay, we're just gonna do it. And I swear it was in slow motion. It was like a movie. It was just coming right to me, like, I was just trying to box people out, trying to make something happen, and I feel like it just came right to me. Like, I'm telling you, it was just like slow motion. And I was just like, I gotta hold on to this ball. They grabbed me. I'm down, just holding on the ground. They grabbed me, every part of my body, trying to grab the ball, trying to get the ball away. It was something special. The crowd was going crazy, like you said, man. People was running on the field. It was something nuts. And back then it wasn't, it was just like, wow, we made a play and we won a game. But when you look at it now, it was like, wow, that was special. Definitely special time.
And then, a month, 2 months later, you guys were in Detroit for the MAC title game, going against the ranked and undefeated Ball State Ball State team. I'm forgetting their mascot for a second here, but Nate Davis, the quarterback, they were a big time team that year, and you guys took them down in Detroit. Talk about that game, because that game was fun too. That was so much fun to watch.
That whole year was just special. I mean, we were just, winning games at the last minute, and crazy stuff was going our way. And I think that game was just the same thing. It was just, it was a battle at the beginning. I mean, we were going back and forth, and then turnovers were just crazy. We having, balls popping in the air, they fumbling, they doing all type of stuff, scoring, back and forth. And I think we just try to put it on, and we just started, like, hey, we're gonna win this game. Everybody was just, mentally. I think that's what, the team. That's what at UB, when we got to UB, it was like, hey, everybody started believing. I'm like, hey, we got a team to do this, and we can make it happen. I think you just saw it. It was just like, okay, whatever happens, we just gonna make it happen some way. And that game was special because, I mean, we fought. Come my first year at UB, we won, I think 2 games. And, just to, from that, my freshman year to junior year, winning the championship was just, something you just, we thought about it, but, really couldn't see it happening. But, to make it happen was something special.
Talk about that culture shift a little bit, because the Buffalo Bills are sort of seeing a cultural renaissance here as well with Sean McDermott. He came in, the team has sort of been on this long playoff drought. He broke the drought. He talks about the process. He talks about culture. Talk about the head coach you had there, Turner Gill, and sort of the mindset he instilled in you guys and the culture he created at that UB program.
I mean, it was big. He came in my first year. He changed everything around. If guys wasn't buying in, guys wasn't making workouts, guys was, cheating the team, he was kicking you off the team. Like, it was a bunch of guys he let go off the team that he just thought wasn't giving their all, or wasn't, going with what he had in place. So I think that was big. He came in disciplined. I feel like UB always, had talent. They had, before I got there, they had James Starks from Niagara Falls, who's one of the greatest running backs I ever seen play. So they had a bunch of talent. It was just, okay, now how we going to show on the field? How we going to do it, in the meeting rooms, in the classrooms? And, he made it happen. He was checking classes. He had coaches coming to classes, making sure you're in class. He had, coaches come and get you out of bed. Like, if you got 9 o'clock class, the coach coming to the dorm to wake everybody up. Hey, get up. We're going to class. So, he just changed it all around. He made us disciplined. He made us, believe in ourselves and, believe in each other. I think that was the one thing he always talked about, was believing you can do it, believing you can make it happen. And he made us believe that.
Have you had a chance to get back to the University of Buffalo at all recently? Like, have you seen the new gym and the new facilities and stuff that they built there?
Yeah, so I got back probably like a month before the pandemic and everything got crazy. So around like February, I got in there and worked out with a couple of receivers in there. It's beautiful. That's what Coach Gill, he told me my freshman year coming in, he was gonna get an indoor. So, just to see it 10 years later, something special. It's amazing. For real. Our practices was, in them snowy, cold November practices, no more of those to the guys. So I know they're happy about it.
Yeah, we got our buddy there, Tilt is frozen, but I'm sure he'll come back in a second. You mentioned well, hopefully he'll get back in there soon. You mentioned a couple of names so far. You've mentioned Drew Willie. You've mentioned I'm sorry. You mentioned wow, I'm blanking here. You mentioned James Stark. No, you're good. You mentioned James Stark. Between you and James and Ernest and later on, a couple of years later, Bo Oliver and Khalil Mack, like, you guys literally took this program from nothing and built it into sort of this, non-Power 5, reputable program. Like, you guys are responsible for that field house and something. Like, what was it? What does it feel like to have that kind of legacy where you guys were really the building blocks of what the University of Buffalo has become sort of 10 years later?
It's still, you still don't even, notice it. And you just like, okay, I came to, just, make a name for myself and make a name for the city. We always talked about, especially the North, with the city, we just want to put on, And, just to see how it just, upgraded so much now. It's amazing. They got some talents right there. Like, I was working out with a couple of the running backs they got there and a couple of the receivers. They got so much talent there now. It's crazy. And just to see it from when I came in to now, and, the players they get and and even the coach is doing a great job there, and the kids they recruit now. I mean, it's crazy. I remember when we first got to Lil Mac. I mean, he was a freshman coming in, and we like, how did we get him? We seen it from the jump when he came in. And I think he was better at basketball. You know what I mean? We always used to get them intramural games at UV going, and he was, he was throwing them alleys every game. Yeah.
He likes to put up on Instagram pictures of him like dunking basketballs and stuff too. So he doesn't mind bragging about it on social media.
He loves it.
All right. So this is
big time. He's a big time.
Yeah. This is a Buffalo Bills podcast. So we got a couple of Buffalo Bills specific questions for you about your time in Buffalo. Dave, you want to lead it off with some of the Buffalo Bills questions?
Yeah. So, we'll flash back to 2010, right? The draft comes and goes. You go undrafted, but the hometown Bills pick you up as an undrafted free agent, and, you battle through camp and, don't make it to the final team, but they pick you up for the practice squad. So what was the difference, I guess, in the vibe to get that first year with the Bills with under Chan Gailey in the pro setting as it was compared to maybe how you kind of talked about Turner Gill and your time there in UB? What was it? What was the vibe? How was it different coming into the pros and kind of having to, you were a star in the MAC, right? So battling your way onto an NFL roster. What was that like for you? And what were some of the main differences coming in that first year?
I mean, it was pretty crazy. I mean, everything was just fast-paced. I remember my first practice, and when we motioned in college, you didn't motion as fast. And I remember I motioned, and everybody, hurry up, go. And I'm all right. I'm motioning back and forth, and they call the plays, and audibles happening and everything. I'm like, oh, okay, this is where it's at. So I think just the speed of the game was probably the biggest. Everybody, you got D linemen running 4.5s and linebackers running 4.5. I think that was a crazy thing to get adjusted to. It's just the speed of the game was just, super fast. But with Chan Gailey, I mean, which was cool having Lee Evans there my first year, which is cool. I mean, I learned a lot, just so much from him, just being in the meeting rooms and being around him and see how hard he worked. And that's the year when Stevie Johnson was, getting into his groove where he was feeling, he was getting into it. I mean, making big plays in practice. And you seen it that first training camp, like, yeah, he's gonna be special. We all, as young guys, it was me, Donald Jones, and Marcus Dees that year, and David Nelson. We always just look for those guys like, wow, like we're gonna do what they do and just work hard. Just try to work hard as they, as they do. Because I mean, Lee Evans is there, one of the first ones there, working out in the weight room, getting in and stuff like that. So it was good to see that first year how those guys work. And they were always. I mean, Lee Evans is already established as one of the, top receivers. Definitely a top receiver on the team, but one of the top in the league. So just to see how hard he worked and how hard, he got after it was just something to see. Like, okay, you got to work there.
Stevie Johnson. Everyone always likes to talk about his route running ability and some of his YouTube highlight clips where he's just completely dismantling Revis Island. Like, what was he like as a route runner? And I've always heard stories that him and Fitzpatrick sort of had sort of a deal between each other where it wasn't the most organized of things that they would do on the football field. It wasn't exactly planned. They almost did like freelancing type stuff on the field. Yeah. Is that unusual for professional football?
I mean, it definitely is. So when we talk about Chan Gailey was a guy be where you're supposed to be, but get open. Like, that's Chan Gailey, get open. Somehow, some way, just get open. And, Fitz is that type of guy. Fitz is that run around. I'm gonna get you the ball. I'm gonna make a play. And Stevie was that guy where, he didn't run routes, traditional way. He liked to give you different moves at the line. I always follow everything Stevie do. I try to, emulate, because it was like it's more like playing basketball with him. That's what he always talks about. It's like playing basketball. You crossing people. You're trying to take them out with all your routes. So I think that's one thing I learned from him. And it was just like, yeah, get open. Chan Gailey was like, hey, do what you got to do. Get open. Whatever you do, get open. And when you saw Stevie doing it, it was like, you can't tell him don't do it because he's getting open and beating everybody, He's beating everybody who's in front of him. So you can't tell him not to do it that way. So just having a guy like that, Stevie, to see him his first year, and a guy like the coach like whatever you do, get open. Get open.
Speaking of getting open, I have to bring this up, right? MetLife Stadium, going towards the end of the first half there against the Giants. Fitzy hits you. You're lined up on the left side. You got open. When did you know on that play that you had a chance to take that thing to the house for that touchdown, 60 yards?
Yeah, so that play we kind of talked about it in practice, which is something crazy. So it knew it was a blitz coming. So I'm like, all right, just get to the spot and get my head around because I know it's coming. And on me, and I just saw daylight. Like, I saw daylight, and I was just started running it. The one thing I was like, do not get caught. Like, whatever you do, you make a move and do not get caught. Because you get caught, they're gonna talk about you the whole week in film. So do not get hauled down. So that was my whole thing. Run fast.
You mentioned Chan Gailey a little bit. When you first came to the Buffalo Bills, you were sort of new to the league, so maybe you don't have the greatest frame of reference, but the organization was sort of going through a lot of turmoil at that time. There was the ownership, was sort of in limbo. There was talk about relocating to Toronto. John Bon Jovi was the most hated man in Buffalo around that time. The Toronto series wasn't very well liked. What was the atmosphere and like the vibe like, in the city, around the team, in the locker room? Was there any toxicity at all? Like, could you guys feel that? Or were you guys just out there doing your own thing?
Yeah, we were kind of out there doing our own thing. I don't think one conversation was brought up about it. You know what I mean? Buffalo fans always support, always going to be around, always going to, going to love the team. So we didn't see that from the outside either. So, what was happening inside and, with the business situation and, the front office situation, we really didn't see. We just, the Toronto series was kind of different because, playing in Toronto, it was cool, but playing in the dome, that hard turf they had out there, they had lights all around the stadium. So, deep balls you really couldn't see. Like, it's like it was baseball. They got lights. So it's kind of crazy playing out there.
Were you, and I apologize for not knowing this in advance, but were you at the epic game where, what's his name, Psy, played Gangnam Style at halftime, or was that after your time? Were you there for that? That song? You know that song Gangnam Style with the weird dance and stuff?
Yeah.
One of my favorite Bills memories of my childhood is seeing that dude out there singing at halftime of a Bills game in Toronto. It was the most sad thing as a Bills fan. Like, this is what we've become.
I bet it was probably awkward.
Yeah. So luckily you weren't there to have to suffer through that.
What's more embarrassing, that or the fact that song was played at my wedding?
Oh boy,
that's how old I am. It's embarrassing. Fact.
Chris, if anyone gets you to ask Naaman questions, we'll let you guys ask questions at the end. We got a couple more questions for Naaman here first, but if you want to get him in the chat now, we can sort of save them up for when we are done here. You sort of came back to Buffalo for another stint. Now I don't believe you ever made it back to the active roster, but you were in Buffalo again under a different coach, Doug Marrone. Doug Marrone is not a very well-liked man here in Buffalo, and he sort of got like a reputation around the league as being kind of a hard ass. So my question to you is, like, without having to say anything bad about a coach, obviously you don't want to burn any bridges or anything, but like, what were the differences in like style and temperament between like maybe a Chan Gailey, who's a teacher, a Turner Gill guy who seems like maybe a more nurturing type of father figure, and like a Doug Marrone guy who's like a straight up get here, do your job, let's eat a bag of nails type of guy? Like, what is the difference between those guys?
It was a big difference when I got back. It was just like kind of like no fun. Like, you better like just everything was just like, meetings were quiet, just he talking, it was just everything just quiet, silence, everything. So I feel like that was the difference. Like with Chan Gailey, he was like, okay, just be yourself. You can wear what you want to wear, kind of just be yourself. But just be there, be the right place when you're supposed to be there. But with Marrone, it was kind of more military, feeling. You kind of had like, all right, everybody sit up tight, sit right, do that certain type of thing. So that was the difference. I wasn't there too long, so I can't, I don't know everything about it, but that's how it felt when I got back. It was just kind of a little bit more just like, all right, sit in your seats, don't talk, don't move, just, like just sit there and listen.
All right. Let's transition now to a little bit of CFL talk. You went on to have, quite a career in the CFL, but like, how long did it take you to adjust, and what are some differences between the Canadian and the American game?
So it probably took maybe a half a year to like get adjusted and understand the game. I mean, there's so many differences. I mean, it's 12 people, 12 on 12. You know, the field is wider, the end zone is wider. It's 3 downs, which was crazy. Like first play, and after the first down, everybody like, all right, punt team, get ready. You know what I mean? Or punt return, get ready. So you're like, hold on, what's going on? It's only first down, and it's just nonstop action, just going. So I think that was the difference, and also with the waggles, with the motion behind the line. So that was my whole thing. Like every receiver can motion, running back can motion, move around. So I mean, that was the crazy part about it. It was always like first couple of times I was always offside. Like you gotta kind of time it up with your quarterback in the snap count. So I was like, training camp I was just always offside. I feel like it was always, always running wrong on snap count. But I feel like what helped was, I mean, you receiver in that game, it's easy. I mean, I feel like you love it. You get a chance to move before this ball is snapped. So you can if you figure out how to do that and how to, to see the defense. I mean, it gets easy. So not easy, but it gets, it gets, easy in, playing in the NFL where you just snagged and you got to make a move off the line. Well, now I can move around and, give you outside move and go to the inside. So it was definitely something that, I loved. I mean, it was fun. It was definitely fun for me.
I mean, speaking of the CFL game, let's transition back to the NFL now. And Dave's got a couple of questions for you. We want to talk about sort of what it means to play wide receiver at the pro level.
Yeah, and so you hear a lot of people talk about like different wide receiver positions, like an X or a Z or a slot or whatever. For you personally, how do you label yourself as a wide receiver? Like, what kind of what is would you say is your natural sort of position? Or do you kind of envision yourself as sort of a jack of all trades, or do you have a natural home or a natural fit that you feel like you're best suited to play in, where you're really using your strengths?
Yeah, I definitely, for me, I definitely feel like I'm a slot receiver, and that's what I've been playing for the last 4 years in Canada, as a slot receiver. I feel like I wasn't always the fastest, not always wasn't the biggest, but I always had always can run great routes and always, can get open. So when you play in a slot, it's always a two-way go, which is awesome. You can go inside, you can go outside. You're not just an outside receiver where, most of your routes, either you got a go route or you got a curl route, or, if you got to be a bigger guy to kind of be on the outside almost. So me, being, 6 foot, almost 6'1", I feel like the slot was like a perfect spot for me where I could, get my Stevie Johnson on in the slot. That's all I try to do, get the crossover and get the moves down and all that. So I think, slot for me was probably my position.
Yeah, so that's interesting because, in the past, a lot of the, early 2000s, even prior, like a lot of the slot guys were always like the shorter guys, right? Because they just didn't have the size to go up down the field and go up and get the balls against the corners on the boundaries. So we've kind of seen this shift a little bit recently in the NFL, where you've seen bigger guys playing in the slot. You mentioned Stevie Johnson. He's 6'2", I believe. You're 6 feet tall. Do you see that as a trend that's going to kind of continue in the NFL, where you see these taller guys playing in the slot that have these quick twitch moves like you mentioned? Because it seems like for you that would give you an advantage if you can not lose the agility or the quickness, but you've got the size. I feel like that would give you some kind of advantage. So do you see that trend kind of continuing?
Oh, definitely. Just with the kids I train and the kids the videos I see and the moves they give now. I was just watching the video of what's the name, Jerry Jeudy, and
Yeah.
and the cuts he making, and he's tall. He's not a small guy. He's fast. He got a quick twitch. He can move like that. So those guys that play in the slot, that's a plus when you 6'1", 6'2", and can move that like a slot and can run like a X or a Z. That's something special when you got guys like that can do it all. So I think it's definitely transitioning to where it's like it's not really a certain guy that's a Z or a certain guy that's an X or a certain guy that's a slot. It's like, hey, we just gonna put you where you best fit or where we can make the get a good match.
I think we might have lost Naaman there. Is he out?
I think he's still there. Might have lost him for just a second.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if he comes back. As we do, while we're on the topic of conversations for wide receivers, let's have a conversation about Stephon Diggs today, because one of the favorite things that I saw about we actually just started getting into a conversation about Stephon Diggs, Naaman, because one of the favorite things that I saw at practice today was Naaman was like getting in Josh Allen's face. Naaman was getting in rookies' faces.
Diggs.
Diggs. Sorry, you're Naaman. Is it important, because you mentioned Lee Evans and you mentioned Stevie Johnson, is it important to have veterans in the room? Is it important to have guys in the room that are willing to get in guys' face to keep the keep the standard high?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Yeah. You definitely got to, I mean, it can't be no feelings out. You can't get into your feelings out there on the field, because I mean, it's intense. I mean, you go through so many emotions on the field. So, I mean, guys understand it. When you got a quarterback that you can come up and talk to and tell, or you got a receiver, a big time receiver, where you can go up to him and talk to him like, all right, this is what I want. This is what I've seen. This is what I want for you to do. I think that just makes it even special. So I saw that earlier, and that looked special. And when they talked about it and he started the next play, they made it happen. I mean, that's something that you need. And when you got a quarterback that can listen, you got a receiver that wants to listen and wants to learn. And I mean, that makes it special. So I think, Diggs was a big move for the Bills. I mean, that's big time right there, because he big time. So I think that's gonna make Josh Allen a better quarterback. When you got a guy like that, a certified number one receiver that's still in his prime, that's still hard to cover. I mean, that's special for a quarterback.
All right, we're gonna open it up now to the chat section. If anyone in the chat section has any questions, throw them out there, and we'll sit here with Naaman for a couple more minutes and answer them, and then we'll let you go, because you've been gracious to us with your time. But as maybe some questions are rolling in, what are your thoughts on sort of the Bills wide receiver core as you get a chance to get a look at them heading into the 2020 season?
Oh yeah, I think they got. I mean, especially I think in the AFC East is the best. I mean, when you got Diggs on your roster now, you got Brown that's fast. You got Cole Beasley in the slot. A couple of younger guys that they drafted look pretty good. And I hope Duke makes it this year. I mean, I love Duke as a baller, so I hope he gets it going. Man, what I've seen him do in Canada was something special. Just to see him continue to do it in practice is definitely special. So I hope he's one of those guys that can make that 5-6.
Yeah, he's a fan favorite for sure amongst the Bills community. Everyone's rooting for him. There's a lot of Duke truthers out there. So Cody, we're going to get to the viewer questions now. Cody asks you, Naaman, what are your expectations for the Bills this season? You could keep it general. You can be specific. What do you expect out of the Bills in 2020?
Man, they got to be AFC East champions. You got to. This is the time. I mean, Brady left. The Jets. I don't know what's going on with the Jets. Miami. They transitioned into another quarterback. So this is the time. I mean, AFC East champions is a must this year.
All right, we got another.
Sorry. I was gonna say, Daniel, who's a regular of ours, has asked, who was your favorite Bills teammate when you were in either stint? But who was your favorite?
Yeah. That's tough. I don't even have one favorite. I mean, it's tough.
You don't want to single.
Lee Evans, I learned so much from. Lee Evans, I learned so much from. So that's probably a guy that really learned. That was really like, hey, I'm gonna, tell you everything I know. I'm gonna help you out. So in meetings, he talking to me about certain things he do and fun stuff like that. But especially, so definitely Lee Evans. I mean, Fitzpatrick was always one of the coolest guys. You wouldn't even thought he went to Harvard. How cool he was and how funny he was. So, I mean, there was a bunch of guys that, that's special.
I think this is a great question here from Chris. I didn't even see it was from Chris. Chris is one of my favorite chatters in the chat, so I always like to give him love. I didn't even realize this question was from him, so now it's going to look like I'm playing favorites. But he says, what's it like being an undrafted free agent and trying to make the squad when others, are having, doubt that you have much of a chance? How do you keep your head high, your confidence up? I think this is a great question because there's a lot of guys right now in training camp. It's tougher this year than most years. But what's it like being that undrafted free agent in the room?
I mean, it's tough. You got limited opportunities. It was some practices where, the only time I was getting reps was one-on-ones. And I had to make the best of them. during the team period, you probably get 2 to 3 reps. So, I mean, which is tough. So, you had to make the best of every opportunity you had. So, you was going to play special teams. That's one thing that young guys come into the league and kind of don't get is you're going to be on the special team. So you better do, you better do your best. You better get ready to block. You better get ready to run downfield and make a tackle. So I think that was the one thing, which is understanding that, okay, I got to get good at special teams and make, do something there.
Daniels asked, what was your favorite moment from playing in the NFL?
Favorite moment? Probably I would say not even a touchdown. Probably my first catch was against Miami Dolphins down in Miami. Was probably was something like I will always remember. I think I got a first down too, and I think I pointed the wrong way. I can't. I think they got on me on film about it.
Check that out.
I think yeah. So I was just so. I mean, it was just so exciting. I mean, especially doing down in Miami. I mean, it was crazy. I think where we played it, I think they had like a club going on. So you heard music during the game, like a club on I think the third level or something, which is crazy. So I mean, this is fair. Do something like that in that that environment. Against the Dolphins, which the Bills hate. So I was definitely awesome to do
that. Let's see here. We got a question here from Cody. You had a chance to watch Josh Allen much. Do you think he's this is a loaded question here because this is something that's even quarterback gurus are undecided on. But what are your thoughts on Josh Allen as a quarterback? Does he have the ability to be a franchise quarterback?
I think so. I mean, he got the athletic ability is there. I mean, that's what you saw coming out of college. The iron strength is there. I think it's just. I mean, it takes time for quarterbacks. I mean, some quarterbacks, especially their first, second year, but it takes 3 or 4 years to get to that level. And I think this is a year to get to that level. I think he's special. I mean, he's special talent. He can throw, he can run, he can do everything. So when you got a guy like that can use his feet, I mean, when he gets in trouble, I mean, those type of guys don't come around too often. So you got a guy like that can, make those plays with his feet and also with his arm. I mean, it's something good. I think the only thing needs to work on is just to, get the accuracy down. I think that's it. But that comes with time. That comes with just, being playing quarterback more, getting that confidence stuff. So I definitely expect him to be better.
Yeah. Oh, this is a great question too from Elliot.
And I think this is a question that could be answered either maybe with a teammate, even in practice, or opposing team. So who was your favorite corner lineup against? Who did you have the most fun going up against? Maybe it was trash talking or the guy that you knew you were going to beat every time, and maybe who was the most fun to go up against in practice on the Bills?
Probably on the Bills, who was probably probably Gilmore. Gilmore was probably the best guy I played against, and Gilmore was just he was so crafty, he was tall, strong. He'd grab you at the right time, where the refs couldn't see it, you know what I mean, or people couldn't see it. So I think he was just real crafty with his stuff, and he worked hard. He always every time you're going against him, he giving his full effort every time. So definitely Gilmore was probably the best and my favorites to go against.
You mentioned Josh Allen. We talked about Josh Allen as a franchise quarterback. You've played for a couple of quarterbacks that honestly are really intriguing. You played for Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is maybe in the folklore of Bills history, probably number 2 behind Jim Kelly. Everyone likes to talk about Fitzmagic. And you played for one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, Drew Willie. What is it about those two that made them exceptional quarterbacks? What is it that made them exceptional leaders? What is it that made their teammates want to play for them?
I mean, like you said, with Josh Allen and Diggs coming up to each other and talking, I think that was one thing with Fitz. You can talk to Fitz about anything. Fitz, he always hey, you see something? Come tell me. You think I didn't see it and you saw it. Come tell me, talk to me about it. So I think those guys Drew Willie was always, hey, let's talk about it. Hey, let's do this. Let's figure this out. Let's watch film together. Let's figure this out together. And I think we got quarterbacks hey, it's just don't do it this way or, no way. We got a guy hey, let's talk about it. Let's see what you see. I'm going to tell you what I saw. We're going to talk about it and figure it out. So when you got quarterbacks like that, want to get your opinion on things or what you saw or what you did wrong and you go to them. When they got a quarterback that say, hey, my bad, I messed up. When you got a guy like that, it's something okay, yeah, he would have, You know what I mean? It's not just him, but, you know what I mean? He's a star, but he's also, you know, one of the guys too.
Did you know he went to Harvard? Do you have any idea? He went to Harvard?
Which is crazy. Yeah. When I first heard about it, I said, no way. He cannot, no way this guy's a
Well, it's funny because you probably don't get that. You probably don't get that joke from a player's perspective, but every single time a Bills fan would watch a game on TV, like clockwork, at least 10 times a game, the announcer would mention that Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard. So it's sort of like a running joke amongst Bills fans. Anytime Ryan Fitzpatrick is mentioned, it's like, you know, you went to Harvard, right? Just like Chris Hogan, a receiver who came to Buffalo after you. He's like, you know, he used to play lacrosse. Like, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
So this is a fun question right here, Naaman. So outside the Bills, maybe, or even maybe on the Bills, who are some of your favorite players to watch today in today's NFL? Who are some of the most exciting guys for you to watch on Sundays?
Oh, that's tough. There's so many guys, like, especially me being a receiver and watching receivers. Probably Michael Thomas is one of the guys I love watching. I mean, it's unreal what he do. I know, even though he got Drew Brees, it's still like, you know, the ball coming to him and he's still grabbing it. So when you got a guy like that that's still making plays, I mean, you know, the ball is most of the time is going to him. He's definitely probably the best. Him and probably Julio Jones is probably next to the two guys. It's just something that, I mean, unreal. Julio is probably unreal. Like, I never saw nobody like that fast, that strong. I mean, run great routes and everything.
And the longevity for Julio too, man. He's been doing it for a long time, and he just keeps coming back. He's first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. I really like Julio. I like that answer.
All right, one final question for you here. I know you just signed a new contract in the CFL, but let us know what you've been up to, how your career's going in the CFL, like what you're up to, because I know you're back in Buffalo, and also, have you considered, Dwayne Rock just bought the XFL. Have you considered coming back stateside at all?
Well, Canadian League been treating me good, so I don't know if I'm gonna come back. I mean, it's kind of, we just got the info that they shut the season down. They try to have a shortened season, starting in September, that they just shut down last week. So, I mean, that was kind of tough. So they actually got a couple of people, you can opt out of your contract and trying to pursue the NFL right now, which is cool. They're letting people do that, which is cool. But the XFL, I don't know if I can, I can't. I'm 32 now, and my body's shutting down. I can't, I can't get hit as much anymore. I was trying to do at least one or two, two more seasons and be done with it. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But now I'm back in Buffalo. Been training, running backs and receivers. And I mean, it's been awesome. I've been enjoying it. Just trying to. I mean, I've been able to play professional for 10 years now. It went fast. So. All the knowledge and all the stuff I gained, I'm just trying to give back now. So I definitely started that. It's called Nice Training. And, if anybody want to, come, I do from 11 and younger to 12 to 14 and 15 and older groups. So, I mean, go to my website, NaamanRoosevelt.com, and, book a session. And, I mean, you'll have a good time. We have a good time. We work hard, but we have fun doing it. I think that's the one thing. When you have fun working hard, I mean, it makes it better for especially for the kids. It makes it fun for them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naaman. We really appreciate your time, and we'll have to have you back on again sometime soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Naaman. Best of luck to you, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, y'all. Yep.
Yeah, no problem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will now, head into maybe more of the show that you're used to. Thank you so much, Naaman, for your time there, and let's start off with some Bills talk. So, we've been through. Obviously, it was a pretty crazy day of training camp. There's a lot of news that came out in training camp today. So we want to talk now about the training camp news. But before we do that, I just want to start off. Ryan Teal, you had the super chat earlier. I do apologize. We're not used to
put it on. Tried to put it on there for a second. I found it, but yeah, sorry about that, Ryan.
We always strive to create the best show we can. Like, just know that, like, whenever we're on here, we're live. Thought was put into it. We are trying the best we can. We missed, Ryan, your super chat. We apologize for that. And, this is our first time doing sort of a major interview, not on a podcast, but on a vidcast. So I saw the comment sections. I saw some of the comments. I saw Josh left. I'm going to DM him. I'm going to have a conversation with him. We apologize. And we'll do our best to get you guys involved. We'll do you guys the best to have the best conversations we can and put on the best show we can. If if you guys ever feel like we're doing something wrong, feel free to hit us up on Twitter. Feel free to send us an email. We're always here to accept, criticism. We are always here to put on the best show we can, because this show is for you guys. So if if there are things that you don't appreciate about the show, things that you don't appreciate, things you think we can do better, shoot us an email and we'll always try to do better. So I know some of you appreciate it. I know some people were struggling with it because it was a little bit different. That's okay. So we're always here to put on the best show we can. Thank you to Naaman. Let's talk training camp now. Maybe we'll stay an extra 20 or so minutes tonight, Dave. Make it up and still have the typical hour we normally do, because there are definitely some Monday musings that I want to get to, because it is Monday, even though last Monday I thought it was Thursday and I tried calling it a Thursday thought. We have some Monday musings for you.
We do.
And we will let you guys get involved. Feel free to hit us up with your takes. Feel free to hit us up with what you saw at camp. But it was a crazy busy day at training camp today. And let's start with the first Monday musing. Josh Allen made me wet my pants at least 3 times today. Like, absolutely ridiculous. The throw.
You had some pretty lewd comments there on Twitter today from you.
I went a little crazy on Twitter today. Well, because I didn't, until 5 minutes before the show started, I didn't even see the John Brown highlight. Like, Josh Allen came into practice today, pissed off that he missed practice yesterday, and super ready to go. And, like, I know he's been hit or miss this year, but our defense, I think, is going to be just as good. I know we're going to talk about some concerns we might have in the secondary. But from all the reports I'm hearing, our defensive line is killing it. Our defense is looking just as good as always. So if Josh Allen can start making these big plays like this and just have the year he had last year and complement it with these big plays to John Brown, to Gabe Davis, to Stephon Diggs, I mean, look out. Because if this offense can score points, our defense can definitely carry us the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I mean, think about this. And Cody, I know you wanted me to get to your question, so I'm going to touch on one of your questions that you had before we even went live around Gabe Davis. And, the fact that he's made now a couple plays on Trey White during camp has me kind of musing about the fact that, I was thinking going into this season that it would be Diggs, Beasley, and Brown, and the depth behind that, was just going to be kind of like a luxury, whether that would have been Davis or whether that would have been Duke Williams or whether that would have been Isaiah McKenzie. But it's really looking to me like Gabe Davis is kind of separating himself from the rest of the pack. Now, we never thought there was any question about his roster spot because he was a 4th rounder, but there's like a real chance now that he may contribute more than we had initially anticipated. I think when one of the earlier shows, I think a lot of the chatters were saying, like, what do you think stat-wise for Gabe Davis here? And I was like, I don't know, 200, 250 yards. But now, I think he's got a chance to eclipse that by quite a bit based on what we've seen. And my musing, I guess, is that, we've seen a lot of these clips now where Trey White's kind of been the butt end of the plays here.
He's just tired. He's the only DB left.
I'm not saying there's any concern. What I'm saying, this is more in the context of Gabe Davis and the receiving core stepping to the plate, right? I mean, I'm not worried about Trey. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that it's been very impressive to see what Gabe Davis has been able to do against stiff competition. These aren't. He's not. He's down on the depth chart, let's say 4th or 5th. It's not like he's doing this against like the 5th or 6th corner. He's doing this against the number 1 corner. So that's, that's where my head's kind of at right now with him, like thinking like, man, this guy could really be a nice contributor for us this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, I was dead wrong, and I have no problem admitting that I'm dead wrong through a couple of weeks of camp on Gabe Davis. My take on Gabe Davis all along was, I think Isaiah Hodgins was a better receiver right now. I thought that Gabe Davis was going to be a developmental guy that was going to take a year or two to really carve out a role, and that he was going to be the heir apparent to John Brown. I think I took for granted the role that he could play in 2020. And if you really think about it, Brian Dable liked to rotate guys last year or early on. Brian Daboll loved sending guys in, sending guys out, sending guys in, sending guys out. And then last year you saw them sort of go away from that. And one of the reasons why you saw them go away from that was because Josh Allen kind of struggled with new personnel packages and new players coming in and on and off the field. So maybe another year under his belt, Josh Allen feels a little more confident. You can get a little bit more of a rotation in there at wide receiver. Not to mention, if our skill position guys are Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and Cole Beasley, those are our 3 top receivers. You're going to try to get those 3 guys on the field all the time. So you're going to see a transition, I think, from sort of a 12 personnel package. Like you could see 12 personnel practically thrown out the window. I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a very minuscule part of this offense. And we are at a base 11 personnel offense, which means 1 tight end, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers. And in that case, the wide receivers are going to get a little gassed. Like guys are going to have to come off the field. And a guy like Gabe Davis can carve out a nice role where he can play a lot. It seems like, and here's the part that I doubted, because I remember on draft day, Daniel Jeremiah said at UCF they put him 3 yards from the sideline and they let him run in a straight line. And I sort of had this sort of generic thought of Gabe Davis as an outside receiver, a guy who's really good downfield, a guy who might take a while to pick up the nuances of a route tree and work other places like the slot. But it's starting to look like a lot of his big plays have come from the slot. A lot of his big plays have come from the slot. So who knows? Maybe he can carve out a niche not only as John Brown's, backup, but also the role I thought Isaiah Hodgins could play, Cole Beasley's backup.
Well, it's not only that; it's the whole 4 of them really can all rotate. I mean, outside of really Cole Beasley, right? I mean, John Brown could rotate in the slot. Gabe Davis could be outside. Diggs could be outside. Diggs can play in the slot. Gabe Davis can be outside. Brown can be outside. So there's a lot they can do if Davis is able to play in and out with those 3 guys. Now Beasley's going to be strictly slot, but that 4-man rotation that you could have right there with potentially different packages of different guys in the slot. I mean, elite receivers, the Michael Thomases of the world, the Devontae Adams of the world, the DeAndre Hopkins of the world, these guys play inside and out. Their coaches are putting the coaches, if they're good, I'm actually going to say something good about Bill O'Brien. They'll put their star players all across the formation. So if Daboll wants to get creative, he's going to put Diggs in the slot sometimes and Davis in the outside. He's going to put Davis in the slot sometimes. Like he's going to have to be creative and create mismatches where he can find them. And their star players should be able to play in and out.
Mm-hmm. I saw this other comment sort of trends. Actually, let's stick with this comment let's stick with the wide receivers for 1 second, because I put out my first 53-man roster projection the other night because I was bored. And it was like 9:00 Eastern time. So I think I dropped it at like midnight Eastern time. But anyway, I was bored and I did it. It got some decent run on Twitter. But one of my hotter takes was I only had the Bills keeping 6 receivers. I had them keeping the 5 that we always talk about. That includes Andre Roberts. And I had them keeping Isaiah Hodgins, who apparently has teetered off a little bit. So my hottest take was only 6 receivers because my thought process was like, what's the point of having a receiver, that 7th receiver, who's just never going to play? Like, what's the point in case someone gets hurt? Like, what are you afraid of? And I think the biggest fear would be losing a guy to waivers and not making a guy get to your practice squad. But I think Duke, we mentioned Duke. I still think Duke is expendable. I don't think anyone's going to grab Duke. I still think Robert Foster's expendable. He's sort of gone invisible. He's had those concussions. He's sort of off a lot of teams' radars. I easily think we can keep that 6-man wide receiver core and sneak Duke and Foster onto the practice squad. The odd man out would then be Isaiah McKenzie, where as much as I love Isaiah McKenzie, it's time for Stephon Diggs and John Brown to take the role of the guy who runs the jet sweeps. We don't need a one-trick pony gadget player. We need our studs, our alphas being able to do those trick plays too, because that's what truly catches the defenses by surprise.
Yeah, and McKenzie, if cut, is not going to the practice squad. He's going to get picked up by somebody. He'll get picked up. So Robert Foster
because there are anemic offenses out there that need that sort of jolt. And I don't think the Bills are in that boat anymore. They don't need that jolt. They have the star power.
And Robert Foster certainly seems like he's kind of low man on the totem pole right now. So, between Duke and McKenzie, I don't know if either of them makes the team. in your scenario, if we keep 6, probably neither makes it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Duke and Foster. Foster, I don't see any real threat to him not becoming a practice squad guy if we do cut him. So I still don't know. I'm going back and forth on whether we're going to keep 6 or 7. Like my heart, I kind of want to keep 7, but I don't know if it makes sense logistically from a roster construction standpoint. And I'll be, talking with Knapp on his show about my early 53, not to get too far into that, but it's tough, man. I mean, you gotta take away from elsewhere. So I don't know. I think I'm with you right now. I'm like my head right now is saying only keep 6.
Yeah, Elliot comments. Matt Perino just commented yesterday saying how good and fast McKenzie looked in camp. I'm not doubting that. I am not doubting that at all. But just as you said, like, where does he fit? Like,
right.
Like, where does he fit? Like, maybe they keep him and Hodgins as 6 and 7, and they pick week by week whether they want a big slot or they want a speed guy. So they play matchups. But I don't know. Like, you're not going to see Isaiah McKenzie, I think, playing on the outside. Maybe you want him as a true backup to Cole Beasley. But if you want Gabe Davis on the field, you're going to want him taking reps behind John Brown and Cole Beasley. So, Anthony makes a good point. It's about the talent, and I do think we're deeper at wide receiver than other positions. And that's one of the things I've said before in years past. Don't just keep 6 guys because everyone keeps 6 guys. If you only have 5 good ones, only keep 5. If you have 7 good ones, keep 7. So I'm with you there. But as good of a training camp as Isaiah McKenzie's having, part of me just thinks his time in Buffalo is over, and he's going to go somewhere else and have some relative success. And a couple of us will shake our heads and say, "Oh, we shouldn't have done that." But it might be the best for both sides just to say goodbye at this point.
But it's also to what you were saying, like if Diggs can do what he does, if he's only going to be there for this super specialized role, and if you're the Bills and you don't trust him enough to be a backup punt and kick returner, then it may be great that he's having a great camp and he's a good player, but like can you really keep him for that reason and that reason alone? Now, if he had shown something maybe in camp around ball security on punt returns, kick returns, then maybe I could see that, right? Because that is a situation that we do kind of have an issue at, is a depth at in the return game. So I just don't know if that's going to be enough for him to stick around.
All right. So I did see a comment way earlier in the comment section. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pull it up at this point. It's been so long. But the comment was about the comment. Where was it? All right. I'm not going to bother scrolling for it anymore. But the comment was essentially Deron Lee, who came into Buffalo for a visit today, plus Chiefs intel greater than AJ Klein. And that leads me to my next music, because Deron Lee is not the same position as AJ Klein. AJ Klein is a strong side linebacker. Deron Lee is very much a weak side linebacker. So Deron Lee is much more in the Matt Milano mold than he is the AJ Klein mold. You're not going to see Deron Lee come in and play strong side linebacker. He is a smaller type of linebacker. He's going to get pushed around in the setting that an AJ Klein would be in, the role that AJ Klein is pegged for. Not to mention that it was Ryan Witt with the comment. Not to mention, we paid AJ Klein like a heap ton of money. Like he ain't going nowhere. So
I know.
My Monday musing with the visit of Michael Pinckney and the visit of Deron Lee, one a middle linebacker, one sort of a weak side linebacker, are maybe Voshan Joseph and Tyrell Dodson not impressing? Should we be like this guy who's a 5th round pick that everyone loves? Maybe we're overhyping him a little bit, and maybe Voshan Joseph just isn't sort of all we as fans hoped he was cut out to be.
It's certainly a possibility, and I mean Deron Lee's got the pedigree. He was obviously a high draft pick, but it concerns me that if he really had a ton to offer, then like why has he been sitting out on the market for as long as he has been, and not a single team has picked him up? I mean, the Chiefs were the last team that had him, if I'm not mistaken, and like you can't tell me that they don't, they couldn't use linebacker depth. I mean, a lot of teams could. So I don't know if we're falling in love with the draft history of Deron Lee a little too much. by the same token, we all kind of, or at least me personally, I've had high hopes for Voshon, but without preseason and the fact that he didn't play last year, he's certainly behind as far as like where he probably expected himself to be at this time, and maybe where the Bills expected him to be this time. So maybe it's just some competition for him to really kind of light a fire under him. I don't know. We've been linked to Duron Lee in the past, and nothing ever kind of happened with it. So I guess we'll see. Like, I won't really, I'll hold my breath until we actually make a move and sign him. But, I'm trying not to get too, too worked up about like the fact that he was like a high draft pick, a couple years back.
Let's talk about cornerback depth a little bit, because I'm starting to get a little scared. Ike Brown just decided to up and retire today. And then what else? Josh Norman, the rumor is starting to circulate. It's a hamstring injury or quad injury or something like that. He might not be available through the first couple of weeks of the season. So right now, as it stands, it is Trey White, Levi Wallace, Teron Johnson, and Cam Lewis. I know Dean Marlowe and Saran Neal have flex. Oh, and Dane Jackson.
Yep.
That's still not a lot of corners. Now, when the season starts, I'm okay with that. Like, if the season were to start and those were our corners, okay. Like, I'll wait till Josh Norman gets back. It's fine with Levi Wallace. We know, what it said, but we got a super chat here from OP Ding. Said I'd make it on Twitter. Made it a tad bit late. It's all right, man. Better late than never. And as always, you can catch us anytime on demand. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Sportscaster, after the show, and in audio form on the Daily Buffalo next morning. So there are plenty of ways to check us out if you missed us. You missed a great interview with former Buffalo Bill Naaman Roosevelt and some great talk on current Buffalo Bills receiver Gabe Davis. But where were we? Cornerbacks. I mean, have you had a chance to look at the veterans on the market? Because I know I haven't. Someone just mentioned Captain Mutterland in the comment section. I wanted to throw up my mouth. So I don't really know what's even available to the Buffalo Bills out there. I know Drake Kirkpatrick and another guy just got picked up by the Cardinals. That has some name recognition. BW Webb. So who even knows what's available out there in the market for the Buffalo Bills at this point?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know at this point if Josh Norman's going to be available week one. That's kind of like the big thing, kind of throwing a wrench into all of this, right? The one thing you would say is like, you could always bring back Akeem King if you needed to, right? He was signed off, from Seattle. We cut him, I believe, when we signed the defensive tackle. Can't remember his name right now, but I believe we cut Akeem King when we signed the defensive tackle. Smart. Yeah. So you could always bring Akeem King back as a body until Norman gets healthy. At least he's got, whatever little familiarity he did have, he's got it. But otherwise, like, I don't know that they're going to do a whole lot here, because like at this point, it's like, why not give Dane Jackson the reps, right? Give Teron Johnson a chance to kind of prove himself a little bit. Kind of hurt that EJ Gaines obviously opted out, but these things are going to happen. You gotta be ready for it. So if it was me, what's the super chat record? Watch every week. Thanks, OP Ding. The super chat record, I think, is $70 for one.
I think it might be like 5 individual super chats, and I do believe someone gave us like $70 one week. So yeah, it's a pretty high bar, OP Ding. We don't expect you to. We don't expect you to get there. But
the fact that you super chatted is awesome enough. I mean, the fact we love any super chat, so we appreciate that. So, I mean, that's I'm not overly concerned yet. The Bills haven't really expressed a ton of concern yet outwardly about Josh Norman. So I'm holding out hope that he's going to be ready for week one. We still got 3 weeks to go, a little under 3 weeks to go until the opener. So you'd like to think that if it was something even just a little bit mild, that in 3 weeks' time he'd be ready to go. But hey, maybe it's a chance for Levi Wallace to show himself too a little bit. So not too worried about it yet. But if we get closer to the season and it sounds like Norman's going to miss, then maybe maybe there's a little concern there.
Yeah, and it's really weird too, because it seems like maybe it's Sean McDermott, but this team a lot of times get stuck in a position where they're low on numbers in the defensive backfield, and they just don't seem to care. Like, I remember a couple times early in the Sean McDermott era when it was like Phillip Gaines and Ryan Lewis before Levi Wallace came along. There were weeks where we were super short. And then there was, last year, even going into the wild card game when Levi Wallace was a little bit, limp and was going to miss that game. And Teron Johnson has had the injury history he did. So the Bills have always seemed to sort of not so much care about what it looks like in the defensive backfield. OPD again. He's
former Bills star Ross Cockrell is a free agent.
Yeah,
just to bring him back.
So, someone mentioned Mo Claiborne, and then someone mentioned Logan Ryan, and we'll get to Logan Ryan in a second. Davion says late but never. You guys never disappoint. Thank you, Davion. We appreciate it. Hopefully your shirt will be coming in the mail soon. We appreciate all you guys. But Logan Ryan. All the reports I'm hearing for Logan Ryan is he wants $10 million. So until Logan Ryan is willing to come off $10 million, I don't think the Buffalo Bills have any interest. Second, Logan Ryan is a nickel corner. So the issue you have there is it's like, do you move Teron Johnson to the bound? Like our issue isn't nickel right now. I think the Bills like Teron Johnson despite his injury, concerns. I think the Bills like Cam Lewis, even despite the fact that he's a relative unknown. Dean Barlow and Saran Neal can fill in that slot. I'm not worried about the slot. I'm not worried about the slot. My worry is the boundary. And there are what, 3 guys right now that can that can play the boundary. So that's my biggest concern. And Tebow 1997 says, is Naaman coming out later in the show, or do you have to rewind? You got to rewind. He was here for about the first 35 minutes of the show. He did a great job. Definitely going to want to rewind and check that out. Then an interesting comment here from OP Ding. Secondary is fine. Let's improve the D-line. See, here's the thing, OP Ding. I respect the super chat, but I don't know. I don't know about that because from what
D-line's the deepest position on the team, in my opinion.
Let's transition to the D-line because I'd love to talk about it. I nicknamed them a couple of weeks ago the blue tidal wave, and I'm sticking to it because all the reports I'm hearing out of training camp is this defensive line is giving the offensive line problems. Whether it is Mario Addison, who came out the other day and said everybody on this defense is a pass rusher, Sean McDermott echoing that statement, saying that Eric Washington, that's something he's a firm believer in. I mean, we have a defensive line that's going to rotate in and out in some capacity. Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, AJ Epinesa, Quentin Jefferson, possibly, more than likely, in my opinion, Trent Murphy, Harrison Phillips, Ed Oliver. I mean, Daryl Johnson, Vernon Butler. Daryl Johnson's probably going to make this team too, folks. I know that, part of my 53-man roster projection was I had the Bills keeping 3 true defensive tackles, Butler, Phillips, and Oliver. And part of that being was you keep the best guys on your roster. Keep Vincent Taylor on the practice squad. Keep Denzel Smart on the practice squad. If you need them, call them up. But AJ Epinesa can play defensive tackle. Quentin Jefferson can play defensive tackle. We saw Sean McDermott rotate 3 defensive tackles last year when Vincent Taylor wasn't cutting it. When before we brought Corey Leggett in, we saw them rotate 3. We know they can do it. Keep the best guys. Even if we keep 9 defensive ends or 9 defensive linemen, I still wouldn't mind if 6 of them were ends. I really wouldn't. And that might be a hot take, but I don't care. Throw them all out there on the field.
I don't think it's such a hot take, because all this is a label, right? I mean, AJ Epinesa says, we've already heard he's playing everywhere on the line. Quentin Jefferson can play inside. So by that argument, you could say, well, we have 5 guys that can play interior and 4 ends, right? Like the only guys that are really true ends are Hughes, Murphy, and I mean, even Addison maybe could even slide inside. But like you want to talk about like the true ends, it's like I'll put Addison in that group. We're talking about Addison, Murphy, and Hughes. I mean, Jefferson and Epinesa can both play inside. So it's like, I almost feel like you have more depth interior wise, even though label wise, you might have more guys on the team labeled as ends. Your interior depth might actually be even greater than you might think. So OP Ding here with a comment, edge, we need long-term at both ends. And this comment is somewhat relevant, right? Because at some point you are going to have to replace Jerry Hughes and Trent Murphy. Epinesa is going to be more of your kind of run edge type of guy. Probably not going to give you the big sack totals, but and Addison's in his 30s already. So I don't necessarily disagree with this, that we do need long term at both ends, but I don't think it's like an immediate, like we have to do it right now need. Long term at both ends, but
oh, sorry. I just tried to turn our YouTube on I literally turned our YouTube on because I was trying to get a handle on seeing how we were doing here tonight. But before I turn my volume off, I'm in total agreement with you. Chris Janke says the answer is Daryl Johnson. That's the thing. Like part of my 53 man roster projection was keeping 9 defensive linemen instead of 8, keeping 6 defensive ends instead of 5 or 4. And part of that reason was to ensure that we kept Daryl Johnson. Daryl Johnson and AJ Epinesa are 2 of what I would say 4 future pieces. Because if you look at if you project this team into the future, you don't know what Daryl Johnson's going to be. I think your hopes for Daryl Johnson is he's just a very good, like 3rd, 4th defensive end. If he turns into something better than that, great. AJ Epinesa, you have hopes that he's going to be your stalwart left end, not the most elite defensive end in the world, but always an above average left end. That's your hope for him. So what do you need to do heading into the future? Go out and find another stud pass rusher. And I think with Jerry Hughes and with Mario Addison, you bought yourself about 2 years to go out and find that guy. You bought yourself 1-2 years to go find that guy. Because you can't do everything in one off season. And then you got to go and you got to find those guys to fill in after that. Brian Cox Jr., from all accounts, is having a really good training camp. Maybe Brian Cox Jr. makes the practice squad, and he's our 4th defensive end next year. So the Bills have seemed to have some luck finding guys. Eddie Yarborough, Mike Love. They found guys to come in and contribute in that like 4th role. But like, let's face facts here. What Bills fans want more than anything is they want the Mario Williams. They want the Aaron Schobel. We want a stud double-digit sack guy. That's what we want. We're not getting that with this defense, in my opinion. We're all about sort of the everybody does it. Everyone gets 6 to 8 sacks. By the time the year is over, we're in the top 10 in sacks, but nobody stood out above anyone else. No one made the Pro Bowl with 16 sacks. I think that's the Bills' mindset, but the Bills are also leaving themselves open. They're leaving themselves open if they need to in the future with Epinesa on the left side and Daryl Johnson as a rotational piece. They left themselves open to if a guy falls to them, a good trade for Yannick Ngakoue or a guy in the draft. They can pull the trigger in 2 seconds and change their philosophy. So the Bills are leaving themselves open, and I really appreciate that about Brandon Beane.
Yeah, and our guy Joe Miller from the Overreaction Pod in Hump Day Hotline. Good question here. How does the McDermott defense change without a stuff and stack DT like Starr? I mean, by all accounts, it sounds like Harrison Phillips is coming along nicely in camp. And I mean, I don't know that he's going to be quite to the level that maybe Starr was as an underappreciated one technique. But I mean, he was on the rise last year before he got hurt. And we also have Vernon Butler there to potentially play that role as well. I mean, Ed Oliver is going to be playing the 3 techniques, so that's set. Jefferson can come in and play 3. So as long as Phillips and Butler can hold it down at the 1 technique against the run, I think we're going to be okay. And then, time will tell, right, to see how much hate that Starr got was warranted versus how much he was really underappreciated, and where like the truth really lies may show up early in the season when we go up against the likes of Le'Veon Bell and Jordan Howard and Matt Breida and those types. If we're fine against the run, then I think we're fine with Harrison Phillips and Vernon Butler in that role.
You got OP Ding. He says, "Couch didn't try my best tonight." Dude, you're throwing all your beer money out the window tonight. Come on now.
You just threw out a Mad Dog 2020 right there.
You threw out an entire 30 rack. You threw out an entire 30 rack of Keystone.
But we appreciate it.
Yeah, we do appreciate it. I'm gonna go buy a 30 rack of Keystone after the show now. That's what you're gonna see me drinking next show. Is me downing Keystone ices.
I'll have a Mad Dog 2020 for you. The blue raspberry.
Ladies and gentlemen, so we've talked corner depth. We've talked, we've talked the defensive line. One thing we haven't talked about yet. One thing that we kind of brought up in our conversation with Naaman. I want to bring it up again. And that's Stephon Diggs and his leadership. He got in Josh Allen's face today. And then him and Josh Allen corrected something, and they made a good throw. There was another video clip today of him and Isaiah Hodgins running a route on the same side of the field. They both were throwing the ball. Diggs caught his, Hodgins dropped his. 2 seconds later, Diggs is in his face, and then Isaiah Hodgins is doing 10 push-ups on the ground.
Yep.
Off to the sideline.
He got in Fromm's face too at one point.
It's here's what I appreciate about this. And I'm not the biggest Richard Sherman fan in the world. He said, spend my money on beer. That's how it should be. Beer and the Bills guys. Beer and Bills guys. That's our next shirt. Beer and Bills guys. Thank you, OP Ding. But, where was I going with this? I'm not the biggest fan of Richard Sherman, but I will say this about him. I mean, one, he's great in the community. He does some really great things for students. And as a teacher, I appreciate that. But the second thing is a guy like Richard Sherman, when he comes to an organization, whether it was when he was drafted in Seattle or when he went to San Francisco, is he sets the bar this high. Yes. And then if you're not meeting that bar, if you're not meeting his expectations, it's almost like Michael Jordan-esque, if anyone's seen The Last Dance. He holds you accountable, and he holds you not to, the pro standards, but to his standards. And Isaiah McKenzie, Stephon Diggs, he does that same thing. He comes to Buffalo and he's like, listen, I'm an all-pro. I've been to the playoffs. I've practically been to the top of the mountain. I've been as close to Super Bowl as you can get in the National Football League. I want to get there. I know how it's done. We're going to do things my way. Receivers in this room, you think you knew what the expectations were of you? No. Multiply that by 10, and I'm going to be in your face until you meet that. Quarterbacks, you think you know where to throw that ball? No, you didn't know where to throw that ball until I got here and told you where I need that football. Now you know where that football needs to be. Let's get it done. Let's fix it. So for him to come in and not be an asshole, not be a jerk, not be a diva, not be a prima donna, but to set a standard and to hold people to it. A championship caliber standard. It's something this team needed. And I think Josh Norman brings that to a degree as well on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, and I mean, think about the progression, right? Between year one with Josh Allen, with Kelvin Benjamin, Zay Jones, there's no standard. There's no standard there. Let's be real. There was no standard there. Year two, Bean brings in John Brown and Cole Beasley. These guys are consummate pros. You heard from Josh Allen in the interview with Mark Sanchez talk about how it was night and day with those guys coming into the locker room. Now what happens year three? You add the cherry on top with Stephon Diggs, the ultimate sort of alpha guy in that room. John Brown, Cole Beasley, yep, we're falling in line too. We brought the initial sort of mindset and culture here around how you're supposed to act and how you're supposed to be. Stephon Diggs taking it up a notch. And with Diggs there, this whole group now is accountable to each other. And the rookies, you hear them talking about it, and the whole room, it's just amazing to me how different this room is in just 2 years. And to me, that progression and that accountability, it's really nice when you see it transition from McDermott when he first got there and him being the guy that tried to instill that and him being the face of it. Now the players are starting to be the face of it as well, right? The players are holding each other accountable, and it's not just one guy now in McDermott. It's everybody in the organization holding each other accountable. And that to me is the true progression of the culture that he started. So I'm super pumped about it.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to watch how that sort of develops on the field. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to the most, is seeing how that transitions, to the actual game day. We got one last super chat here from OP Ding. He says, Josh Allen is a god. Plan on being a regular on live from now on. Let's boogie, boys. I appreciate OP Ding. We really appreciate it. And just so you know, listen, we like people who are loyal to the Bills, guys. Don't get me wrong. We got our regulars. You're our people. We love you. We respect you. But we're also willing to share you. And Buffalo Fanatics made a pretty big announcement yesterday, or this morning, I should say. We dropped a pretty big bomb that now, with football season in the regular swing of things, we are going live like this 7 days a week, folks. Mondays and Thursdays, you're going to get yourself the Bills guys. Tuesdays, the Hoof podcast. Anthony's on the chat. I see Anthony here. They have been like literally. I slid into their DMs the other day. Being the podcast director, we have a nice little group chat, and I gave those guys props. Their podcast. If you haven't listened to the Hook podcast on Fridays, I know some of you guys aren't podcast guys, but where they have come from their Colorado's Bills Backers podcast that they asked me to guest on, 3 months ago, to join the Buffalo Fanatics and where they are now. It's absolutely incredible. They have interviewed Dog the Bunny Hounder, Joe Marino, you name it.
We know how they did, because Anthony's actually Lin-Manuel Miranda
he's
in
got
disguise, and he's doing this on the
he's
side.
Got the celebrity hookups. And I will say this too. I was cutting a promo for them the other day. Anthony's got himself a new microphone setup, and if anyone needs Chris Brown of BuffaloBills.com to narrate something for you and he's not available, call Anthony, because it's frightening. Absolutely frightening. Absolutely frightening how much Anthony sounds like.
You think Joe Miller sounds like Seth MacFarlane? Wait till you hear Anthony. He's even more. He is Chris Brown for sure.
So, Cody made a comment. So we're gonna get back to Cody's comment in a second. But so Hoof on Tuesdays, Wednesday it's the Hump Day Hotline, Thursday it's the Bills guys again, Friday it's the Rico Report. Don't worry, he's still here. Saturday it's one of the funniest duos in Bills Mafia, Bills Overdue, and Sunday's post game. Sunday's post game it's going to be the Rico Report as always. Cody with the comment up here, and Bobby, Bobby's in the chat, so I'm going to need your permission first. But Cody says 7 days a week. Let's push for 8 days a week.
Funny you mentioned that.
Bobby, can I make it another announcement right now? Can I break some news? I know we don't have like a graphic for it or anything, but can I break some more news, Bobby? Do I have permission to let this one slip? Anyone? Bobby?
Just let it slip, man.
If Bobby
let
does
it be a Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction right now.
In the works, ladies and gentlemen, in the works. It's not fine. It's not a done deal yet. It's not signed, sealed, and delivered, but I am doing my best to make it work. Buffalo Fanatics will be coming to you live 2 hours before every single Bills game with a pregame show live on YouTube, Facebook, Sportscaster, and Twitter. So just, nightly you get the Buffalo Fanatics pregame. Pregame, you'll be getting the Buffalo Fanatics as well. And it'll be a rotating group of hosts. It'll be a I don't know.
So if you don't like watching some of the other pregames where they just kind of gloss over the Bills game, because that's what they typically do.
If you're sick of Phil Simms referring to like CJ Spiller as our starting running back. Yeah,
you're going to get 2 hours dedicated to Bills pregame, and we'll probably touch on some other games too, but obviously the focus will be on the Bills. And we'll go, like Steve said, we're going to try to do this with rotating hosts and stuff. So we're trying to work out the logistics right now with the scheduling and who's going to, do when. But that's the plan. Pre-game with rotation, post-game with Rico. So you'll have it all covered. Sounds like 8 days a week. You're right. That's 8 days a week, Cody.
Sounds like 8 days a week for me. So, all right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the comment section is getting real freaky. But
it's getting wild. It's after 10 p.m. Eastern, man.
All right, let's transition back to some Bills talk, because I promised the people some extra 20 minutes here, so you guys can fill in the comment section with your comments, your questions, anything you want. We are down for it. Let's get into kickers.
Oh, let me give one other quick shout out. Let me give one other quick shout out, because we've been making some of the rounds on this show, some of the people from Buffalo Fanatics. And I want to give a quick shout out to Robbie from the Let's Talk 716 Sports YouTube channel. Jay Spence has been on there. You've been on there. I know Joe Miller's been on there. I'm going to go on his show. You guys should check it out. Steve's repping the same jersey he wore, I think, on the show with Robbie. So Robbie, he's in the comments section shouting you out. Let's Talk 716 Sports. Wanted to give him a quick shout out. You guys need to check it out. Really good guy.
Yeah, I'm rocking my Jeremy Harris when the UB Bulls were in the NCAA tournament back in the day with CJ Massenberg and Jeremy Harris and all those guys. Yeah, it's nice. Go to a website. It's a Chinese website. I can't say the name of it because apparently I'll get in trouble. But go there. If you can slide into my Twitter DMs if you want the name of this website. So I also got a Josh Allen jersey. And speaking of Zach Moss, we got a nice comment here from Chris. Got a hot take. Zach Moss's pass catching ability is going to make Yeldon expendable, similar to how Singletary's early camp made LaShawn expendable last year. I don't know about you, but I'm in 100% agreement with him. I think even if it wasn't for the pass catching ability, it seems like the Buffalo Bills are pretty content on 2 running backs on game day with the third guy who plays special teams, which makes me think that Tywan Jones, even though he got hurt, so we'll have to see what comes in with the injury here. The running back room to me is wrapped up with those 3: Singletary, Moss, and Jones. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, a little sneak peek here. My preliminary 53-man projection did not have TJ Yeldon on the roster, so I think that tells you all you need to know about that. It also didn't have Christian Wade, so don't blow up my comments about Christian Wade either.
It's funny too, because we talk about this sort of, you can have 4 veterans on your practice squad this year. So you can have up to 4 veterans. And if you think about it, if you look around the league, as much as we like TJ Yeldon, as much as he is like a guy who's done some stuff in this league, a guy who caught 50 plus passes a couple of years ago, like if TJ Yeldon were to get cut, look at the depth charts of the running backs across the NFL. Who's really picking that? Who's really picking him up? You know what I mean?
So he had a chance to last year, and no one did. He was a free agent.
He was a free agent forever. So if you cut TJ Yeldon, you could probably bring him back in your veteran practice squad. And if Zach Moss gets hurt or Devin Singletary gets hurt, you just call TJ Yeldon up. Like, I really think that TJ Yeldon is someone they can stash without having to waste a roster spot. I really don't. And my biggest concern, the biggest reason why I was forever putting 4 running backs on my 53-man roster was because my fear of the COVID-shortened offseason and having a guy like Zach Moss not up to speed with the playbook, not up to speed with the NFL game, all these things. But from everything I've heard from training camp, like he's full go. And he's taking the reps with the 1s. He's taking the reps with the 2s. He's looking good. It doesn't look like the Bills are holding him back at all. So that concern is pretty much gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's been glowing. Honestly, like for all the rookies, it's been kind of a glowing reviews. I mean, I don't think they, the Bills themselves might kind of like fluff it up a little bit, but the media, the reporting on the Bills probably wouldn't. So, all reports are that. And dude, Moss, I mean, you talk about Saquon and A.J. Dillon. Let's throw Zach Moss into the conversation for best thighs on a running back in the NFL.
Right? And unlike A.J. Dillon, he can catch the ball.
Yeah.
Like he's not a one-trick pony.
Yeah, well, Saquon's a freak. He's in like a class of his own. But Zach Moss, I mean, he's a specimen, man.
Mm. Yeah, it should be really interesting. Yeah, Zach Moss, Travis Henry 2.0. I hope so. That was my comp early. I think he's a better receiver than Travis Henry. So kickers. Let's have a conversation. Not punters. We're not talking about punters today. We're not going to do it. We're not talking about punters today. It's not going to happen. We're going to talk about kickers. And here's my latest sort of hot take. Something that I've been musing for our Monday musings. It's Monday musings, an hour and 20 minutes in. And I want to hear what you guys think, because I think this is something that's going to get ridiculed. I really do. But, early on in camp, Tyler Bass has been inconsistent. He's shown he's got a big leg. But he's been inconsistent. He's been missing some kicks. He hasn't been the most accurate in the world. Steven Hauschka sort of looked like he had sort of a dead leg early on, but apparently he had a booming day today. Like he made 2 from 50 plus. He was like 9 for 9. Like Steven Hauschka was on fire today. With the lack of games, with the inconsistency from Tyler Bass, and sort of the dead leg of Steven Hauschka, and like you see the leg some days, you don't see the legs other days. Is there a chance? I think some people are seeing where I'm going with this. Is there a chance that we keep 2 kickers? Is there a chance we keep 2 kickers? Tyler Bass, it's your job to kick from 50 plus, and it's your job to kick the kickoffs. And Steven Hauschka, your job is to kick from 50 under and extra points. Is there a chance that we keep 2 kickers at least early, to give both the guys maybe some game opportunities, and then like by week 4 or week 5 make a decision? Is there a chance we keep 2 kickers? I'm hearing a lot of no's.
I don't think so, because it's a wasted roster spot in my opinion. And the other thing is like kickoffs, you don't need the big leg anymore like you used to, where you could just blast it out of the end zone and they'd start at the 20. So we know they start at the 25 now. And more teams are trying to, quote, coffin corner on kickoffs more, or at least kick it short of the end zone to try to tackle the returner short of the 20 or short of the 25. So to me, the kickoff specialist role that maybe existed, 10 years ago is less of a need, or less of a, like, you don't need that big booming leg on kickoffs.
Was it really a role, or was it just Jordan Gay? Like, was he the only one? Did anyone else even do it? I know a couple teams have their punters do it, but
yeah, I thought, didn't the Colts have McAfee do it for a couple? I don't know. I feel like that happened, but
you want my hot take here? I'd rather have two kickers than Isaiah McKenzie. I would. I think I'd be more comfortable. Holding on to Stephen Hauschka with the young kicker and giving it 4 or 5 weeks and cutting Isaiah McKenzie. It's not a popular take, but I think I'd do it.
Is there anything to it though, of like letting a kicker get in a rhythm if you're going to constantly like have one guy do one type of kick, another guy do another? I just don't know, man. I mean, the thing is, if one of them learns how to punt in the next 3 weeks, sure, let's keep both of them. But I don't think that's going to happen. So
I knew it was
we weren't going to talk punters, but if one of them learns how to punt, then yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, Lucas, we had this conversation about like 40 minutes ago too. I love Isaiah McKenzie, the player. If this was a different football team, I would want Isaiah McKenzie on my team. And if Isaiah McKenzie makes this football team, I'll be just as happy as the next guy. But I'm struggling to find a spot for him. Like, I want our offense to not be a bunch of gadget guys. I want Stephon Diggs and John Brown to take over the role of the jet sweeps. And then I want the bigger body guys in Gabe Davis and Isaiah Hodgins or even Duke Williams taking over that role and being those contested catch possession guys. I just don't know. I struggle to find a role for McKenzie or a consistent role for McKenzie. If the Buffalo Bills aren't struggling to find a consistent role for Isaiah McKenzie, if they know exactly how they want to use him this year, they have a plan and it works, well then fuck me. I'm wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I'd be completely happy to go fuck myself in this situation. I would. I really would. So for anyone who thinks I hate Isaiah McKenzie,
no, I don't think he's making the team.
I'd be more than happy to fuck myself. More than happy.
I think what we need to do is to remember that just because we don't think a guy is making the team doesn't mean we don't think he's a good player or we don't like him. It's just it's a numbers game, right? Like, I like Isaiah McKenzie. I just, like, roster construction wise, I just don't see, with the players you have now, with Diggs, who can do pretty much everything he could, I just don't see it. And again, the only path I really saw him making the team was as a backup returner, and he has ball security issues. So I think he immediately will get picked up by another team if we cut him, but we just can't keep everybody. That's just the nature of it. We can't keep everybody. And like Lucas says, it's a good problem to have. We're going to have tough choices to make. It's not a problem we've had in a long time. It used to be like, well, what crappy like bottom 15, 20 guys are going to end up making this team because we don't have a good deep team. Now we're going to be cutting good players that are going to go to other teams.
Yeah, I mean, Chris says, my take is if you keep two kickers, you're basically admitting you don't have full confidence in either player. You need to make the decision and put your faith in one guy. Well, that's the problem is me as a pundit, me as a guy on the outside looking in, I don't have confidence in either of these guys right now, seeing what they're doing in practice. I don't. Like, I like Tyler Bass. Like, I think I'd rather have Tyler Bass take his lumps because I prefer the younger guy to Stephen Hauschka, who, had the yips last year. But if you put a gun to my head right now and said, who's going to kick a field goal for the Buffalo Bills in week 1, who do you trust to kick a game-winning field goal for the Bills in week 1? I'm probably taking Stephen Hauschka. I'm probably taking Stephen Hauschka right now. And the last thing I want to do is have all this talk and have all this fun this offseason and then lose a game because our kicker can't kick for shit. Like, he can't make extra points. He can't make field goals. Like, the last thing that's never happened
to the Bills before in an important game.
Yeah, like, the last thing I want to do, because we all know how much I love special teams, is to have our season ruined by a kicker or a punter. And that's probably, Joe Miller, his podcast this morning, his last 2 weeks have been his biggest concerns this season, heading into the season. COVID, backup quarterback, all these things. You know what my biggest concern for the Buffalo Bills is this season? Not having a good kicker and punter, because I'm pretty confident in all the rest. And the other two can really bring it down.
If we score 30 points a game, field goals don't really matter, right? So,
I mean, that's true. But
I know it's
Yeah.
mattered more in recent past because we've been a low-scoring, defensive-minded team. You've needed every point you could squeeze out of it, right? So those 3 points are super valuable to a team that only scores 19 points a game. But if we score 24, 25 a game, that's one extra touchdown, one less field goal. Okay, fine.
Anthony says if we have to win on a kick, then the game hasn't been good enough. Yeah, I'll agree with you, but still, I want to win the freaking game.
Yes.
Would you let's travel back in time to the year 1990, shall we? The Bills probably didn't play their best game against a backup quarterback for the New York Giants, but I still would have taken the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Gosh, we can't end it on that, man. Got to talk about something else really quick.
How about the right side of that offensive line here? Well, so I've been putting together some articles for the Buffalo Fanatics, you're welcome, Bobby, .com. Don't forget the THE. My article that came out today was all about who I think are the roster locks. And I'm going to put together my 53-man roster projection soon. And part of that got me thinking about offensive line combinations and how Brian Winters hasn't really looked that great through camp. And part of me thinks that the Bills could IR designate to return John Feliciano and start the season with Cody Ford at right guard and Ty Nsekhe at right tackle, with the plan of that not being permanent. When John Feliciano comes back mid-season, they could make a mid-season swap. They have a late bye week this week. Maybe after the bye week, reinstall John Feliciano at right guard and kick Cody Ford out to right tackle. I know that sounds crazy because you're making an in-season swap, but the Buffalo Bills could be looking at it as a short-term fix before they go back to their long-term plan. Because they want to win now, because they don't want to have any hiccups on what they think is a championship and a playoff caliber team, they go for the short-term fix, put the long-term plan on hold, at least until midseason, because it's not like Brian Winters has been a world beater out there. And if Brian Winters isn't a starter, I think Brian Winters gets cut. And I think Evan Bain becomes your backup, Darrell Williams becomes your backup. So for me, it's Brian Williams is starting or he's gone. So that's my hot take, I guess, for the right side of the offensive line, is you're either going to see Winters and Ford, and then John Feliciano comes back and he's a backup, or you might see Cody Ford start at right guard and it not be permanent and Brian Winters off the team before week one even starts. What are your thoughts on that, Dave?
I mean, it just comes down to, again, it's like we've talked about this so many times, like 5 best guys on the field versus what you envision for the long term. I really wouldn't see any scenario where someone could say that Ford and Nsekhe combination is not better than a Winters-Ford combination right now at this moment. But the question the Bills have to ask themselves and what they're going to do on the field is, do we keep that possibility open that Ford shifts into right guard and then shifts back to right tackle and we keep moving him around, or do we just let him stay at right tackle, deal with what we need to deal with at right guard so that he can develop into the right tackle we hope he becomes, rather than having to keep switching him back and forth? I don't think you're wrong. I do think that Ford and Nsekhe combo right now on the O line without Feliciano is probably your best combination, but I just wonder if the Bills are going to. The only, I guess I'll say this: the only situation I could see where maybe that actually does work out is if Ford just absolutely crushes it at right guard in the short term, and they're like, you know what, we're not even going to bother moving him back to right tackle. We're just going to keep him at guard, and we're going to invest long term in a tackle in the offseason or whatever. And Ford's going to be the right guard. Feliciano's gone after this season anyway. When he comes back, he can be the backup center, whatever, right? But it's going to be fascinating to see how they handle that right side now, because this like Feliciano injury is kind of like a big deal, I think. I mean, it's really going to force the Bills' hand on what they want to do with Ford.
Yeah. Sean Munley with a couple comments, and they're good comments. I mean, they make sense. He said, ew, why would you stunt the growth, Ford's growth for a short-term fix? And he also commented that Nsekhe and Williams are both short-term Band-Aids. I agree with you 100%. Like, I agree with you 100%. But when John Feliciano went down, I think there's a reason why we brought Brian Winters in. We brought Brian Winters in because we didn't want to change that plan. We didn't want to move Cody Ford inside. But the fact that we've moved Cody Ford inside on numerous occasions so far through training camp tells me that maybe Brian Winters isn't cutting it. Maybe like the Bills have done everything they could to fill that right guard spot with Feliciano hurt, and nothing's working. And I think sometimes, especially when you have a team that you think is going to be good, take those 8 to 12 weeks, like suck it up. Like it's not the most ideal situation in the world. And a couple people have mentioned that Darrell Williams, Darrell Williams, he's got guard tackle flex, and a couple of people.
Yeah, but he's a better tackle than a guard, though.
I haven't seen the reports, but some people are saying that he's been outplaying Tyenseki. If he is, okay,
well, that play that Epinesa blew up Winters, it was Williams playing right tackle on that. Just so people know. And I agree with some of the comments there. Williams is a much better tackle than he is a guard. And like the fact of the matter is like I'd rather that be the case, to be honest with you. I'd rather him be a better tackle than a guard.
Chris says, how do we know nothing is working? We haven't even played game chat. That's the point. Like, we're not seeing preseason games. This is all speculation. This is us sitting here running scenarios through in our mind. Like, okay, what if Brian Winters sucks? Because the only thing we've really seen of Brian Winters through 2 weeks is him falling flat on his ass. Like, that's all we've seen of Brian Winters. So this is all us, like, seeing these little snippets, these little 15-second clips, and reading Joe Biscaglia's camp report on The Athletic and reading Matt Marino's camp report, over at New York Up, and trying to sort of run scenarios through our head. And that's why our show is an hour and a half today instead of maybe a clean hour or, 45 minutes, because we have to run 45 different scenarios through our head because there's nothing. We're not seeing things in preseason. We're not seeing things on the practice field. We can't concretely say like Brian Winters sucks. Darrell Williams sucks. Oh, Darrell Williams is outplaying Tyenseki. We can't say that because we're not seeing it. So we have to like sit here and have these. Well, if Darrell Williams is outplaying Tyenseki, then this. And if Brian Williams stinks, then this. But if Brian Winters is good, then this. Like, these are the sort of mind games that we have to play because of the situation we find ourselves in. So it's 100% speculation on my part, 100%. And I'm not willing to say like I have some sort of inside intel that makes me think the Bills think Brian Winters sucks. It's just me saying the only clip I've seen is him falling flat in his ass. I mean, it's all I've seen. So maybe
you're just trying to connect a lot of dots here, right? He's falling flat on his ass. The Jets cut him. A team that really could use offensive linemen, right? I mean, the one thing that is the positive, it sounded like a couple teams were trying to sign him, so you can take that as a positive. So we really don't know, right? We're trying to connect a lot of dots in that, and that's what we can do right now because we don't really have anything else to go by.
War Coder says The Athletic, pretty much implied Ford was getting reps at guard with Williams at right tackle.
I wouldn't mind that. I mean, honestly, that's not bad.
Chris says stay positive. I'm trying, Chris. I'm trying. All right. So someone apparently is mentioning Madden in the comments. Madden comes out in 2 days, and I'm probably gonna hate myself and buy it. But
I bought an alternative to Madden. I bought the new PGA Tour 2K21 game, so I'm gonna play Madden.
I want to buy that.
I'm boycotting Madden.
All right, I can't help myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to have that roster update. Any more questions or comments you want to talk about? I'm fine staying here till like the hour 45 mark if need be tonight. We're men of the people. We're willing to show your which one. I'm not going to do the one where you're calling Warcoder biased.
It's a good game. You should get it. PGA Tour. Take your mind off Madden.
Going back up. All right. Oh, here we go. Who all is getting pre-ordered Madden 21 and who wants to start a BF only? Ooh. But Cody, my question is, what do you have, PS or Xbox?
I thought you can't cross play on those. I don't know.
Can you? I don't know. I have Xbox.
I don't know. I don't think you can.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, any final questions for us? Keep them rolling. We're willing to keep talking. We'll filibuster here. I'd be willing. Filibuster. Oh no, I forgot that there was a political fight in the chat section while we were arguing while we were interviewing Naaman. So I'll take it back. I didn't say filibuster, but
oh my God.
All right. So any final questions for us today, ladies and gentlemen? We are willing to stick around. I will remember that. I'll remember that login. I'll add you on Xbox next time I'm on. Oh yeah, throw your Xbox gamer tags in there if you're an Xbox guy. If you're a PS guy, tough luck, Anthony. Sorry. All right. It seems like we have reached our natural and organic conclusion tonight. I want to thank Naaman Roosevelt for joining us. I'll tell you what, thank you guys for allowing us to do that interview. Naaman is a hero of mine. He's an absolute legend. I'm a University of Buffalo grad. Some of my best memories in my life were watching Naaman, catch that Hail Mary against Temple to beat the heck out of Ball State in that 2008 MAC title game. I still remember we rode the bus down, and I was next to this guy who used to be an offensive lineman for the UB Bulls. And he opened up his backpack on the bus, and he hands me a bottle of Gatorade, right? And it's clear. And I'm like, what, you got water in here? And he's like, no, dude, it's vodka. I'm like, you son of a bitch. And this guy was like a legit 6'4", 330 pounds. He put his arm around me and pretty much just like hazed the shit out of me, made me drink that entire bottle of Gatorade on the way to Detroit. And this was a big boy. And he went through like 4 or 5 of them on our way, to Ford Field. And by the end of the game, he had ripped a seat out of Ford Field. He ripped the seat out and walked out of the stadium with the seat. That's how big this man was. He ripped the seat out straight off the nails, straight off the whatever they call those things where you like right out of the Bulls. He just ripped it out and walked out of the stadium with it like nothing was going on. Craziest night of my life. And then they went and got their ass kicked by Donald Brown in UConn. I don't want to talk about it, but it was a good time, folks. So thank you for letting me reminisce tonight. Thank you for letting me rock my Jeremy Harris jersey. If there was a basketball season this year, thank you, Juan. They're called rivets. So it
Proper
has
terminology
been
right there.
It has been fun. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.